Give it a sec. brain and technology in your pain. He feels the power like a fighter. Batman is Bruce Wayne, many troubles in your brain. Run to the end, the world's on fire.
We're back.
Hello.
The Jedi Knights of the Round Table are doing something we should have done many months ago, but kept putting off. We're gonna review the Batman.
Oh boy. If you know us, you know that we are massive fans of the character and of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say, this might actually be the most accurate depiction of the Batman. Well, weirdly enough, going all the way back to Adam West in his first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll figure out why later.
I've seen The Dark Knight. I've seen the Tim Burton movies. I've seen Adam West and Joel Schumacher. And I can definitively say this is the first Batman movie I have ever seen.
Well, before we get into that, I think it's appropriate that we talk about how we first got into the Batman to begin with. Not the movie, but the character, his universe, and the complexities of it. Koopa, since you're our host, why don't you start us off?
Well, I've been into Batman as long as I can remember. I'm pretty sure my parents were into the Adam West Batman, and I got some exposure from that. But my biggest into the Batman franchise was the Batman animated series, the Bruce Timm series, the one that had Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, and basically was the greatest cartoon ever made. Oh my God, so many good episodes. There was Heart of Ice, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich, Feet of Clay, what else? The whole Harvey Dent Two-Face saga, the Ra's al Ghul saga, that one episode with Zatanna in it. Oh, one of my favorites had a guy named the Jazzman, who was just a regular 2-bit crook. But what was great about it was he nearly killed Commissioner Gordon, and that got Batman so guilty that he almost hung up the cowl for good. It was a really good episode. It was a really great series. I recommend watching it.
Indeed. My case is a little bit more, shall we say, diverse than our host here. Now, the big reason why is because I was born in '98. I grew up in the early 2000s. So, my experience with the Batman largely boils down to this. First, the Batman animated TV show developed by the same guys who made the Jackie Chan Adventure Show.
Oh, I love
was
that
my
one.
first Oh yeah, that was my first exposure to it. Just probably one of the most underrated Batman series to date.
Kevin Michael Richardson as the Joker. Tom Kenny as the Penguin, who's still the voice of the Penguin to this day. It was just amazing.
It was. And especially its introduction of characters such as Batgirl and Robin. You really bought that by the end they were a tight-knit family who were dependent upon each other. They were effectively my definitive versions of the characters. Aside from that, I actually never fully watched Batman the Animated Series. My exposure to the Tim Burton universe was actually its sequel, Batman Beyond. I grew up watching that
Bruce
show.
Timm, not Tim Burton.
Yeah, Bruce Timm. I just grew up watching that whole series. Going to see Batman effectively forced to retire, him having to hand the mantle over to effectively a new successor. This might be heretical, but if anyone deserves the title of Batman, it's really only two people. Nightwing, that being Dick Grayson, and Terry McGinnis. They are the only ones who truly encapsulate what is Batman at his heart, which is ultimately a symbol of hope using the shadows as its weapons.
He lurks in the dark to serve the light. He's an assassin.
Exactly. Yeah. But unlike Bruce Wayne, they don't lose themselves in the process. So, like any good sequel, it improves upon what came before. Aside from that, like you, Koopa, I also grew up a great deal on the Adam West Batman movie. I unapologetically love that movie.
Oh, it's
And
great.
aside from the Batman, it is probably the most comic accurate Batman movie because you got to
Yeah,
remember it was based upon the Batman comics of basically the 50s and the
the
60s.
Silver Age Batman, yes. Back when Joker would say boner and Batman would have a zebra suit that shoots rainbows out of his crotch. No, I am not making any of that up.
You're not, unfortunately. It was also the same series that saw probably the greatest version of Alfred. The Alfred who was unafraid to get in a sword fight with the Joker, then torture the man by forcing him to go up and down a hydraulic pole.
I love that scene.
And finally, Batman Begins, the very first of the Nolan movies, which I know people say that The Dark Knight is a better movie. As a movie, it is, but as a Batman movie, no.
No.
Batman Begins is far and away the best out of the series, and it's still my favorite.
I'd say I do admire The Dark Knight for what it is, but we'll get into that because there is someone pointed out that I did not realize that kind of took away my appreciation of the movie. Anyway, that's just what got us into the comics. So it's like if you don't mind, let's off some of our favorite storylines while we're at it
Okay.
from the comics. Like for me, hands down, the best one is Hush, or as I like to call it, Edward Nigma's finest hour. Because oh my god, he plays friggin' everyone in that. There's also Batman Dark Victory, which I also like, which is a nice, good serial killer style story. There's Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader, which Alan Moore, as much as the man is a pain in the butt, he does write a good superhero comic when he wants to and
Yeah, when he
has
wants
to.
to. That's the key thing.
What else was there? Arkham Asylum, Serious Place on a Serious Earth, a story about. It's not so much a Batman story, but it's a story about a criminal in Gotham who fakes insanity and gets locked up in Arkham Asylum, and then just realizes the hell on earth he's put himself in. What else was there? Batman Nightfall, the when Bane broke the bat and Azrael took over. What else? Uh, I'll let you list a few.
Well, first one is actually not a main Batman story. It's an Elseworld story. It is Gotham by Gaslight.
Oh, that's
It
good.
specific, yeah, it specifically places Batman in the Victorian era of Gotham City. Gotham City is still in America, but we are effectively in the Gilded Age of American history.
Mm-hmm.
And who does he go up against? None other than Jack the Ripper, who, okay, I don't know necessarily if there are two Jack the Rippers, one in London and one in
It's a
Gotham,
different.
but
I can explain it because there was also a really great animated version that changed the identity of Jack the Ripper. But the idea is that he's an amalgamation of the serial killer Jack the Ripper, but also the serial killer based out of Chicago during the Columbian Expedition, who was basically called America's Jack the Ripper, a guy who killed guests in his own hotel while they were staying for the expedition for the World's Fair.
indeed. Another one that might be a bit surprising, but I just love it for the dynamic it brings, is Batman and Superman Public Enemies.
Oh, that's great.
That was the story. That was the story that saw Lex Luthor as the president go insane and frame Superman for the murder of Metello. So basically, every single superhero and supervillain more or less is out to get Superman. And Superman and Batman they team up, and this is the perfect encapsulation of their friendship. To the point that when this is in the animated movie specifically, where they change up a few things at the end, but when Lex Luthor has basically killed Batman, Superman very much says to him that was my best friend, and you just killed him. And he was prepared to kill Lex Luthor until, right in the nick of time, right as he's about to basically punch the man through a wall, he's told that Batman is still alive and Superman can save him. Superman will not kill unless you do very, very specific things. One of those things is you kill the people he cares about.
Mm-hmm.
And on that list is Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne, Wally West, and Lois Lane. Three kills, three people who were killed, who he would kill and jumps over the edge for every time.
Mm-hmm. Now
Anyone
another
who's
one.
anyone who's a fan of DC media knows exactly what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Another one is technically not a Batman story, but I found it very interesting. Was Kingdom Come.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Come was the original Injustice, and arguably better than Injustice. It saw basically a new generation of superheroes um, more or less break out into the public domain, and basically uh, they're causing as much collateral damage as the villains, to the point that Superman, who more or less went into exile because of the death of Lois, yeah, just exactly like Injustice, is eventually convinced by Wonder Woman, Power Girl, and the rest of them to come out of exile and basically bring the world back to order. And Batman, who by this point had his body more or less crippled, has been keeping order in Gotham City through the use of kind of a robot army. And of course, he takes umbrage with Superman's methods. So he leads his own, basically, Justice League, and the two of them come to blows. This is all being observed by more or less a nobody. A simple man who has been chosen by, was it the Spectre or the Phantom Stranger?
I think both. I can't remember.
He was chosen by these gentlemen to observe these events, and it's actually him who talks Superman out of, towards the very end of the movie, or the end of the comic, of basically wiping out the UN because they fired a nuke at Superman and Batman's groups and actually killed quite a few members.
Superman wiping out the UN? Based.
But what's interesting about this comic is, again, it was the first to really play upon Batman and Superman having an ideological difference with each other. But unlike Injustice, where Superman basically turned into a complete other psychopath, this is a Superman who is still Superman. He's just gone authoritarian in his measures to try and keep order in a very chaotic planet. He doesn't resort to murdering people until more or less the very end. And even then, he doesn't even cross the line.
Kingdom Come Superman is someone who's doing what needs to be done. Injustice Superman is just an authoritarian dickwad.
Yeah, basically. Even if you kill Lois like it's depicted in Injustice, Superman, yeah, he would probably kill the Joker, but that would not be enough to break the man and more or less turn him into General Zod.
Well, Lois and his unborn child, but
Yes, yes, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that he would resort to taking over the planet
no.
like Zod attempted to multiple times.
No, he wouldn't. Like, I love
Like,
Injustice as a game. The plot's really
yeah.
stupid.
Well, unfortunately, they have to get the characters to fight each other.
Yeah. At least the first one, you had the real Superman in it.
Hmm.
Oh, and I thought of one more. Batman The Long Halloween.
Which is the inspiration for this movie.
One of the inspirations, actually. Because this also takes inspiration from Batman Zero Year, Batman The War of Jokes and Riddles, Batman Dark Victory, Batman No Man's Land, and a bit of Batman Year 1 and Year 2.
That's actually another good one to throw in there is Batman Year One, which also got a very good animated version.
Mm-hmm. Back.
I'm gonna
The only
I'm gonna throw in one more. I'm gonna throw in one more, and you may not necessarily agree with me on this. Dark Knight Returns. Now, there are
I
some
know.
things that Dark Knight Returns does that it does not do correctly. That
Like,
being Superman's characters.
yes, if Superman is the guy who's an authoritarian dickwad and injustice, he is just a bootlicker for Ronald Reagan, who for some reason Frank Miller didn't like. And
Well, yeah, Frank Miller was basically kind of an ultra lib back then, and then when 9/11 happened, he then turned into a neocon.
yep. So he's still basically a neoliberal.
Yeah, basically. But as a Batman story, when it chooses to focus purely upon Batman's character, it's excellent.
Hmm.
It shows an older Batman who has been through the muck, and the mire. Someone who has become rather brutal in his methods. He hasn't crossed the line of killing anybody, but he has become a lot more brutal in how he deals with criminals. He will break your bones. He will break your arm. He will put you in a hospital for 6 months, but you will still be alive. But
So
what's interesting
killing
is,
is off the table, but breaking someone's trachea is okay.
as long as they recover, yes. But what was interesting about the comic was the psychology it played with the Batman. It very much established that there is a kind of spirit that inhabits Bruce Wayne, and it
Mm.
takes the form of basically a bat. One that there's a very chilling scene that's perfectly done in the animated version where, Batman gets the crap beaten out of him by the mutant leader, and he goes down to the cave to, quote Alfred, find his strength. And there he finds what's implied to be the original bat that scared the living crap out of him as a kid.
Hmm.
And he says, I'm not done with you, and you're not done with me either. As the bat is flying towards him and it revitalizes him. We truly get to see what makes Batman tick. And even when he takes on Superman, it's still an interesting fight because this is the first time we see Batman have to really take on Superman. How does he do that? But it also, weirdly enough, does a good job of characterizing Superman.
If I
This is a
may
guy who doesn't.
if I may interject, the reason why he's fighting Superman, and I'm sorry to say this to any Snyder simps who are watching now or in the future, is because Batman accidentally killed the Joker when he was
He
going
didn't even
into arrest.
accidentally. He didn't even accidentally kill the Joker. The Joker killed himself. He literally
Yep.
snapped his own neck. So Batman was.
However, Batman gets framed. Batman was till the very end, even after the Joker has killed so many people, still would have saved him and still would have brought him to true justice. Still would have followed Commissioner Gordon's words, do it by the books.
Mhm.
And
Just.
and even then, even when the government is sending Superman after him, he is donning an armor suit not to kill Superman, but to keep Superman from killing him. Batman,
Basically,
even
yes.
in The Dark Knight Returns, does not kill. He would not use a gun. Now let's talk about Final Crisis, where he kills Darkseid with a gun.
To be fair, this is Darkseid. This is the most evil, heinous person in the DC universe.
And
Yes,
in his
even
own
worse than the Joker.
words, he was using a gun, a symbol of everything evil in the world, and he was using it against the symbol of everything evil in the world, which is Darkseid.
Hmm.
That is the only exception.
Yeah,
Except no compromises.
that's the thing with Darkseid is you really can't. If you're gonna stop him, the only way you can is you have to kill him. Because
Mm.
if you don't, you can't imprison him. He's too powerful, and if you knock him back to his planet, he's just gonna come back eventually, which is what they end up having to do every damn time.
Yep.
You can't you can't do half measures to Darkseid. You have to kill him.
Yep. It's the only
And
way.
better Batman do it than Superman.
Because Batman can live with it. Batman is. He's always the one who's stronger than Superman in that regard.
Yeah, they are two sides of the same coin, and that's what makes their partnership so interesting, which annoys me that people just seem obsessed about putting the two of them against each other. They are the ultimate dynamic duo. Why do we need to see them fight all the damn time? I want a good story that's like Batman and Superman Public Enemies, where we see them work together. We see
Might,
them complement each other.
might I recommend Superman and Batman The World's Finest?
Yes, yes. Even has a brief moment of them fighting each other to sate your desire for that, I guess.
Oh, it's brief. But we all know that Superman would win that fight.
Oh, easily. Every time the two of them have ever come to blows in the comics, even when Superman is brainwashed, the only reason why Batman is never killed is because Superman holds back every time. Like, I think Hush puts it perfectly. He could laser me with his heat vision. He could slam me into a wall with his super strength. He could just literally fly through me at super speed. But he won't. He holds back even now because deep down, Clark is a good man. And deep down inside, I'm not.
So we've basically established we're really hardcore Batman fans. So take us seriously when we say this movie was the greatest piece of Batman media ever created, aside from maybe Batman the Animated Series.
It's kind of hard to top the animated series considering it's got like what 60 plus hours of runtime.
60 plus hours, 3 spin-offs, an entire animated universe. And it kicked off Bruce Timm's entire career. Plus, it's the reason why we keep getting Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill and Batman stuff.
Yeah, probably easily the best characterizations of Batman and Joker. Not in live action, but in terms of just the voice work, you're never going to get better.
Well, it helps that Mark Hamill is a bit nuts nowadays. So, what did we think of the
No.
movie? Would you like to give your opinion first?
Yes, absolutely. First, let's talk about it as a movie. It is a slow burn of a movie, but unlike a lot of other pieces of media, such as Andor, I'm going to be perfectly honest here, it's not slow without a purpose. Everything is building towards something.
Yeah, this isn't
And
Digimon Ghost Game.
yeah, basically. And that burn allows it to properly explore the city of Gotham. We see probably the greatest extent of corruption ever seen on screen. And to be brutally honest, it's actually rather tame compared to some of the comics we've read. But
It's
regardless,
refreshing.
yeah, we see Gotham at its lowest, but in terms of its atmosphere, its ambience, it's just beautiful. The city feels lived in.
The
It's
city,
basically like it's like what we saw in the '89 Batman movie and Batman Begins combined together and then taken up to 11.
yeah, the city itself is as much of a character in the Batman movie, as it is in the comics. Gotham
Mhm.
City is very, very important to the Batman mythos, and it's something that none of the movies got right until this point.
Pretty much. They got parts of it right, but not the full package.
The
Everything
the
in this scene just
the Tim
sorry,
Burton
go ahead.
movies got the Art Deco appeal to them. So did the Joel Schumacher, but it was still just a city set. And the Nolan movies got the grit of being in an actual city because they filmed in actual cities, but none of the character was there. They switched cities from I think Pittsburgh to Chicago like midway through the series, and no one could tell the difference.
Very much. Now, you could argue that's because by this point the city's been cleaned up, but unfortunately, it just makes Gotham kind of boring. It no longer is an interesting backdrop, and that's exactly what we get with here. Gotham feels like a despicable cesspool that would require somebody like the Batman to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the movie is it does obviously have a lot of throwbacks to Michael Mann movies like Heat, for example, or Seven, the serial killer movie with Kevin Costner.
I love
Not
that
Kevin
movie.
Costner. Who's the villain? Who was the actor who played the villain in that movie?
Uh, It's Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman, and it's the guy from House of Cards, the one who was revealed to be a nonce, who's the villain. I just can't remember his name.
Yeah, it's Kevin something, but regardless, it borrows a great deal from the best of the crime noir movies of the 80s and the 90s. It basically has seeped into the blood of this movie, right down to the characters themselves. Penguin, for example, um, it
He's
the actor
he's
who
he's
plays this.
not a midget freak who was raised by actual penguins. Tim Burton.
Mhm. The actor who plays as the Penguin channels Robert De Niro perfectly. Like
I
his
actually thought it was
expressions,
De
his
Niro.
mannerisms. Yeah. And that's kind of the weird thing is, when you look at what the actor actually looks like, compared to uh, what he looks like in the movie, the makeup design is just phenomenal. It effectively transforms him into a completely different character
Hmm.
altogether. And that's a good launching point into the actual actors themselves. Everybody brings their A game to this movie. Robert
Even Zoe
Pattinson,
Kravitz, who we got some issues with, but she still did a good enough job.
yeah, she honestly probably delivered the best Catwoman since basically the 60s.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm taking shots at you, Michelle Pfeiffer. But regardless, everybody brings their A game to this movie. Pattinson, he is an excellent Batman.
Excellent.
I know people criticize his depiction of Bruce Wayne, but
This
here's the thing.
the plot of the movie. There's an actual point to that. This is the story of Batman discovering that he needs to be not just a symbol of vengeance. That's why the movie is so hyper focused as him being vengeance, him being the knight, him being Batman, because the whole moral of the story is he needs to be more than Batman, just like he is in the comics. This is a Batman who's just starting out, a Batman during a time where Bruce Wayne, in the comics, even in the comics canon, was known as more of a recluse than as a playboy.
Basically, but honestly, it's kind of refreshing because every single Batman movie we've ever gotten has not been about Batman. If anything, more screen time is given to Bruce Wayne, and it really stops being a Batman movie. When
Hmm.
you look at, like, say, the comics or the animated movies, a Batman is always front and center. We always focus on him specifically, and that's why they're so good.
Yep.
It's because it's a Batman movie. This is the
And
first time.
and
This
another
is the first time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and another thing is that with all of the Batman origin movies, and yes, I get it. This is another Batman origin. I don't want to see the Waynes getting shot again. You don't. It's actually played in the background. But the whole point is that he in the other movies where we redo the origin, he recovers from it way too fast. He goes straight from grieving child to billionaire playboy who's just becoming Batman. There was a whole period of time before he was actually forming Bruce Wayne into another tool for the Batman arsenal. And this is what the movie covers. This is a period in Batman's history, Batman year 1, year 2, year 0, which we see that form of that version of Batman before Bruce Wayne became the billionaire playboy philanthropist that we see in all the other stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. And um, jumping around from the different characters, uh, Gollum. Basically, I forget what the actor's name is, but he's
Andy
Gollum.
Serkis.
Andy Serkis, thank you. Andy Serkis, he does a good job of playing Alfred. In many ways, I feel like he's kind of a continuation of the Alfred we got in the Gotham series, who's also a really good Alfred.
Hmm.
This is a like. Don't get me wrong, I like Michael Caine as Alfred. He did an excellent job with the role, but Andy Serkis, you could buy this man being former MI6. You
Yes.
could buy him being in the circus. You can buy every aspect of Alfred with Andy Serkis. Whereas with Michael Caine, it's a bit of a tougher sell.
Well, you can
He's
buy that he served the British colonial guard in Zululand.
Yeah, which funny enough, does kind of get reference in The Dark Knight, considering what was it, Borneo that he was in that movie when he was talking about the Diamond Thief.
I think it was Borneo.
Yeah. Either way, though, Andy Serkis, he doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but the amount we did get with him was pretty good. Um, let's see who else. Commissioner Gordon. Obviously, Commissioner Gordon did get race swapped in this movie, but you don't even really notice that
Nope.
because the guy that they got to play, who was basically Felix from the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, he does an excellent job of Gordon. He
Yep.
is probably as good as the uh, the the Jim Gordon that we got in the Nolan movies. Again, names are kind of escaping me right now. Who
As
played as
good.
him in there?
That would be Gary Oldman, the guy who is
Thank you,
basically
Gary Oldman.
excellent in everything he's in.
Yeah, pretty much. The man is just multi-talented.
It was a
Funny
tough.
enough,
It
he
was a
actually
tough
went
act
into
to follow, and somehow he followed, and in some ways exceeded. He's got a better chemistry with Batman than Christian Bale had with Gary Oldman.
In fact, that's actually one of the greatest strengths of the movie is it almost becomes a bit of a buddy cop movie because of the chemistry between Pattison and Jim Gordon. What is okay? Hold on a second. I'm gonna look up the actor's name
Okay,
here.
doke.
Give me a moment here. Phone's being kind of slow here. Come on, let's go.
Do-do-do-do-do.
And the Batman cast. Jeffrey Wright, thank you.
Yes.
Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright and Pattinson just have an excellent dynamic in this movie. And that's actually the key thing about it is every single Batman movie we've gotten, with the notable exception of Batman Begins, has focused far too much on the villain. It's less of a Batman movie as it is more a Joker movie or a Bane movie. Because nearly half the runtime in those movies are typically dedicated to those characters.
Wait,
Whereas
it's a
Riddler-
Bane movie. I don't remember seeing Bane in there. Where was he? Was he hiding behind the guy going googly moogle, great googly moogly Batman?
I'm going to break your back now, Mr. Wayne. Please, you want me
The fear rises, Batman. I am on allegory for Occupy Wall Street because Christopher Nolan really couldn't write a movie without putting current day politics into it.
I'll make a slight correction. Christopher Nolan actually did not write The Dark Knight Rises. That was his brother Jonathan. Christopher literally wanted nothing to do with this movie except to direct it, so he just panned it off to his brother, who, let's be honest here, is kind of the lesser of the two. But regardless, though, every single Batman movie has been focused on the villains at the expense of the Batman himself. I mean, if you look at Batman, when he's in his interrogation scene with Heath Ledger's Joker, Joker just completely overshadows Batman. Whereas if you, for example, compare it to the deleted Joker scene we get in this movie, Batman, he is silent most of the time, but the presence he has, it feels like it's two equals in a room playing a chess match than goofy bat-dressed man and being completely overshadowed by a much more interesting clown man. And the reason I make such an emphasis about this is because, again, it relates back to we were able to have the runtime to properly explore Batman's character and his interactions with other characters. We got to have the buddy cop moments with Jim Gordon, which was something we just plainly could not get in the Nolan movies.
Yep.
Because, again, so much time was dedicated to the Joker.
And the best villain they could have chosen to do this is the Riddler, who's always been sort of a serial killer.
Pretty much.
So they would have to have him in the background until his motive rant.
And see, that's the thing about the Riddler is in the few scenes that we do get with him, he has, I would argue, almost as much of an impact as Heath Ledger's Joker. And the man only clocks in at, 15 minutes of runtime?
Yep. And he suits the character perfectly. He just drips with ego, which is the entire point of Riddler's character. He thinks he's better than you. He thinks he's smarter than you, and he wants to prove it. This is
And
going to
that
be a
play,
good. If they take this into a series, if Riddler appears again, he probably won't be wearing that mask, but he will definitely try to prove himself against the Batman. He needs to prove that he is his better.
and that ultimately plays into another of the movie's strengths. Batman has always been a detective. The best stories have always been mysteries,
Mm-hmm.
where Batman's got to solve things, and he's going down, various different clues and avenues, and he ends up in dead ends, dead beats, until he finally arrives at the truth. Every single Batman movie, with the notable exception of the Adam West Batman movie, have never been able to retain this. They
Nope.
have an element of detective work, but it might as well be a cameo. Like, think of it this way. In The Dark Knight, we get one scene, only one real scene where Batman even tries to do some kind of detective work, and that's with a really, let's just be honest here, far-fetched method of trying to recreate a broken bullet inside of a smashed-up wall. We
Mm-hmm.
don't get scenes of him investigating things, talking to people, piecing things together.
He's already got
Um,
in the Dark Knight. He's already got the answers. They find the dead cop bodies. They see their name badges, and Batman's already figured out he's going out. The Joker's going after Harvey Dent. Meanwhile, the Joker
Pretty
leaving
much.
clues is something he never does in the comics.
That's a Riddler thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's actually the funny thing is that Heath Ledger's Joker actually steals quite a bit from other Batman villains. He's more of an amalgamation than anything else.
A bit of Joker, a bit of Anarchy, and a lot of the Riddler.
And I will say, the Riddler, a lot of people did complain that the Riddler loses his mystique by the end of the movie and kind of becomes, manic and pathetic and what have you. Do you not understand who Riddler is as a character?
No,
That's him in a nutshell.
he's a weak, scrawny human. He can never he Riddler goes after Batman intellectually. He does not. He is not even remotely a challenge to him physically.
Yeah, and again, that doesn't take away from the menace he's had all the way throughout the movie. And when you think about it, Riddler almost wins. Like, Batman actually missed a very vital clue, and it wasn't until he went back and actually got some help from another cop that he was able to piece together, okay, this is what Riddler's going to do. And even when he gets there, he's almost killed in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually brings me to a very nice thing I like about this movie is out of all the Batman movies, yes, including The Dark Knight, this feels the most grounded in terms of threat
Yep.
to the Batman. Batman is not at the point where he's like
Super
uh,
Ninja.
Ben. Yeah, basically, he's not Ben Affleck's Batman, where he's able to go into a warehouse and just take on an entire, basically, an entire room of at least 20 plus trained operatives with comparative ease and just completely annihilate them.
Well, to
This is
be
a
fair,
guy,
these criminals aren't fighting him one at a time, so
they're not, and that's the key thing. A lot of the fights, okay, first off, it is a movie, it's never going to be 100% realistic. And if you attempt these things, you will get your ass kicked. But it felt realistic in the sense that Batman's taking hits. He is vulnerable, and it actually adds tension to every single fight he's in.
mm-hmm.
One of the best scenes, after all, is when he takes, basically a double barrel to the chest, and he is knocked down, and he can't get up because that's a double barrel to the chest. If it's 12 gauge or even 20 gauge, you're not getting up from that, even if you have really good body armor.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that. And
He,
we see this guy, he's going to kill Catwoman. He can't get up until he sticks. We have no idea what he really sticks into himself. It looks like Venom. It's probably not
it's
Venom.
not
But
Venom. At least according to one of the videos we're gonna be covering, it's apparently an Ephraim. Basically, a mixture of morphine and adrenaline.
okay. Either way, though, he needed that to get up. He goes over. He beats the wholesale out of the criminal in question. It felt like a nice marriage of basically what the Dark Knight series attempted to do with elements of the Ben Affleck choreography thrown in. This is a Batman who knows how to fight, and it's being filmed by a competent director who knows how to film a good fight scene.
Hmm.
There is no shaky cam. It doesn't rely on Batman being sluggish and slow. He is quick, he is deliberate, and he is brutal.
If anything, it's exactly like the Arkham games, the Batman Arkham series. If anyone, it's on sale on Steam right now. If anyone wants to get it, but the combat is just so naturally free flowing and really good, and it never gets to a point where it's like one guy and then another guy and then another guy, and you're just taking them down one at a time. You have to fight guys in groups, including with guys with venom pumping in their system in the mix.
Yeah, and this movie just managed to accomplish a lot with what it managed to set out to do. It's just a well-rounded movie, and it's an excellent Batman movie. It's a movie about Batman. It's a movie about Batman being a detective. It explores Batman's intricate relationships with the likes of Jim Gordon, with Alfred, with Catwoman, who honestly had a really good chemistry with. I actually can buy their relationship, unlike Michelle Pfeiffer and what's her face, Anne Hathaway. I know, blasphemy. I did not like them either as Catwoman because they didn't really have a good chemistry with the main actor playing as Batman.
Nope.
If you know anything about their relationship, Catwoman is playful. She likes the chase. She likes Batman to chase her. And when the two of them are, ever together, she is always flirting with him.
Hmm.
And, for the most part, Batman's pretty stone-faced, but you can tell she's kind of getting under his skin. With Michelle Pfeiffer, with Anne Hathaway, you never got that. You don't get Catwoman of those two. You basically get Michelle Pfeiffer and Anne Hathaway. They just act like themselves.
It's very much a cat and mouse with them. But if there's any woman who can be called Bruce Wayne's one true love, it is Selena Kyle.
Hmm. And by the end of this movie, obviously Batman is determined to stay as Batman, and Catwoman's left to basically go to Rome. They're going to follow that story, I think. You kind of get the vibe that he wants to be with this woman, but he can't. And all I have to say is, not yet, Bruce. Not yet.
Give it time.
That's
Give it
that's gonna
time
probably
and maybe
come
a
in few
recast.
movies. Well, I don't think you necessarily have to recast the actress. I think she did a good job of it. Just obviously, yeah, just typical in Hollywood culture.
Yeah.
As long as they keep that out of the movie, I don't really care. You really can't care about the politics of the actors because it's always been read. Go watch Razorfist's video on the subject, but it can't really be helped. If it's helpful that they agree with your political sentiments, that's a nice bonus, but I don't really care about that. I only care that they respect their fan base and they're good actors.
Hmm. Yeah, if there's any gripes I have, it's that the actress who plays Catwoman in this is so unlikable, even though the character she plays is so somewhat likable. But also that it's 3 hours long when you could have just shortened a few shots and made it a simple 2 hour 45 minute movie. Like that would have been the length of a Fellowship of the Ring theatrical cut. It would have been good. Not saying the long movie bad, but I had to go to the bathroom before it was done. So
Fortunately, I watched on less, shall we say, glamorous means. But yeah, I do agree. The runtime, it can be a hard sell for a lot of people. 3 hours to sit down and watch this movie. I think it's 3 hours well spent, but I do agree it could have been shortened down a bit if you trimmed out a few things.
length does not make a movie bad. Long movie is not bad. We have one of the most praised movies of all time being the extended cuts of The Lord of the Rings, and those clock in. If you watch them back to back, you're gonna lose a whole day.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, Actually, that's gonna bring me to one final thing, and then we can go on with the videos. But
Yep.
the legacy of Martha and Thomas Wayne. Going into this movie, I was a little bit afraid that they were going to do the same thing they did with the Joker, where they were going to trash their characterization. Now, to be fair, Joker didn't really do that when you look at it from the perspective of the man's insane. Nothing he sees is real.
That's my favorite part of the Joker movie. At the very end, it's very much to be implied. He was just telling the psychiatrist which may as well be complete bunk.
Possibly. But with this movie, yes, it plays into the fact that Thomas and Martha Wayne, they were dirty. They did do some possibly bad things in their attempt to become, politicians in the city, ultimately with the goal of doing better. But that's the key thing, though. When they came to the abyss, when they came to the edge, they stepped away. And unfortunately, well, depending on who you ask, they were killed because of that. But that's the key thing I like about this movie is it doesn't go to the deconstruction of those characters. It doesn't even really deconstruct Batman, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It instead presents them as being human. They
Yep.
made mistakes, but they held to their values, and it gives Batman a moral code to him, a moral core to him that you just don't get a lot of other movies. He's got a line. He's not going to step over it. He's going to stay close to it.
Yeah, before we get to the videos, all I have to say is, like I said before, I seen the Nolan movies. I seen the Tim Burton movies. This is the first Batman movie I have ever seen. All right, now let me preface this. Micah Curtis is a YouTuber who I used to watch a lot of until we got into a fight. And if he ever watches this, dude, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry for what we're going through, but what we're going to go through in your video, but you're just flat out wrong on this one. This isn't a personal attack against you. This isn't me trying to start anything. This is me just saying that on this, you're kind of wrong, dude. So, shall we fire up the watch together?
Sure.
Got the
Do you
link?
need me to do it on my end, or do you
Uh,
want to record it on your
I got it on the window capture. Just plug it in.
Yep.
Plug it into the watch together. I'm watching the OBS.
Copy that. Okay, it's coming up.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, now before we begin, do we want to watch the whole thing, or do we want to skip through it because it is about 20 minutes long?
We'll skip through it, but let's fast forward through the first bit because this is just him showing his own comic, which honestly, Micah Curtis is part of Comicsgate, but he is so much a part of Comicsgate. He's one of those groups who say your comic book heroes are dead. Go and buy Comicsgate instead. He's kind of a zealot when it comes to the topic, which is one of the problems I had with him, and just get past his shilling.
Yeah, give me a second here. Let me see if I can find. The artwork's okay. I mean, it kind of reminds me of sort of old.
Oh yeah, he hires really good artists, and from what I hear, his first comic was a concept. Like, I like the concept because it was a marriage of Wildcat and Daredevil, but it comes off like a Wildcat and Daredevil comic, so.
Yeah. All right, let's start it.
To be honest with you, if there's any one thing I like writing, it's superheroes. Now, one thing that I have seen myself doing less and less of since I've started writing my own stories is I don't watch nearly as much superhero stuff. In
Pause
fact,
it.
When it comes right down to it, like,
He's basically admitting he hasn't seen the movie, and yet he's having a take on it. I'm just saying.
I haven't watched much of the MCU since Endgame.
I don't exactly.
I don't blame him either.
There's like only a handful of things that have been even remotely good.
All I can think of is
In
Moon
Phase
Knight,
4.
and then what else?
Moon Knight, a little bit of Loki, and maybe the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and also maybe a decent amount of WandaVision, but that's about it. See,
And
that's the key thing. I'm not saying the full series.
I've made my statements on WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness before. This is not a point we're gonna agree on Multiverse of Madness.
That's fine. Either way, though, I don't exactly fault him for that. You can honestly skip Phase 4 if you want.
In fact, I don't know
Skip Phase 5 too.
the MCU film all the way through since Endgame, and I haven't really watched many other superhero films except for, I think, Suicide Squad? That might be the only one, the James Gunn version. And I really liked that one. That one was a lot of fun.
It was
I
okay.
gotta be honest with you, I didn't like that movie.
I thought it was mediocre.
Yeah, it's not the buy it on Blu-ray that Jeremy Johns for some reason gave it. It's
Yeah.
okay. I don't like the fact they killed off so many people at the beginning of the movie, but that's regardless. We're talking about the Batman. We're not talking about that.
But it's superhero in the sense that it's, a DCEU film, but it's not about actual superheroes, if you get my drift. But anyway, this is actually about The Batman, the most recent film that, rumor has it, might have had a stolen script. I don't really care. That's not my
Well,
problem.
if it's just a rumor, why are you bringing it up? That's kind of poisoning the well right there. I'm just saying.
My problem with it, oddly enough, isn't even anything that has to do with like the current political zeitgeist or anything along those lines. Rather, my big gripe with this particular film is in its writing. Nothing against the guy who made it. I think his name is Matt Reeves. But the issue that I have with this is that this film is emblematic of why I think that the superhero genre is going to start to fall off in films, and honestly why I think the superhero genre is in a position where a lot of modern writers simply can't write it, and that's because it's way too freaking cynical.
I disagree with that. If
Yeah.
anything, the biggest problem with a lot of um, superhero movies is that they tend to go to one of two extremes. They either go super dark to the point that it actually becomes edgy, such as the Snyderverse stuff,
Yep.
or it becomes so campy that it actually undercuts any seriousness it has, such as the
See
current
Thor: Love
MCU
and Thunder.
releases. Yeah. Um, if anything, there isn't anything really cynical in either camp. They just have two extreme stylistic choices that initially worked, ironically because the darkness worked with the Snyderverse at first, purely because it was an antithesis to the MCU, which had become pretty campy by that point. In fact, that was kind of the selling point, I think, of Batman versus Superman, was that it was going to be a serious movie, and it ended up just kind of going up its own ass.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the MCU, once people kind of got a taste of that and they went back to the campiness, then it just went into overdrive, where everybody more or less has the personality of Tony Stark. Everybody has to quip. Everybody has to joke.
Every director trying to be Joss Whedon and James Gunn. No one trying to be someone who's actually competent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to the point that Thor has ceased to be a serious character. I actually kind of liked Love and Thunder. I liked elements of it, but
I don't.
as far as Thor himself, yeah, yeah, he's kind of ceased being Thor, and he's just become more of a surfer bro.
I adored the first Thor movie. I don't see why people have so much of a problem with Thor: The Dark World. I do not like Ragnarok. I do not like Thor: Love and Thunder.
Liked the first one, didn't like the second one just because the villain kind of sucked.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Liked the third one actually quite a bit, again, because the heroes and the villains had actually worked pretty well in that one. Love and Thunder, bit half and half, to be honest. But, that's just difference of two of us. Regardless, though, the problem is not that the movies are cynical at all. This has probably been the only movie in the superhero camp that has been cynical. And again, that's not its issue.
It's not. It's even then. It's not so much cynical as it's portraying Gotham in a realistic light, and a light that we actually see in the comics. Cynicism is also always mistaken for realism because reality is kind of not as nice as we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is probably the darkest in tone of any Batman film that's ever been. And
I disagree.
Have you seen the DCEU, Micah?
I mean, if you want to talk about a Batman movie that's dark in tone, well, yeah, this is dark in tone. It's not the darkest though. If anything, the darkest would probably be Batman '89.
Hmm.
That is an incredibly dark movie.
Batman
This,
Returns. It's Tim Burton being Tim Burton.
yeah, the Burton movies in general, they are much darker than this, and they're praised for it. So, whatever. Let's continue.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of Batman stories that are very dark in tone. However, the issue that I have with this is that you're basically being introduced to a Bruce Wayne that is more dark and more brooding than usual. To a
Well,
point where
pause
when
it.
he's
Have you not seen? Sorry, go ahead.
That's the point of the movie. This is a Bruce Wayne who's still getting over his parents' death. This is a Bruce Wayne who's only just starting out as Batman. The movie said this is only his second year. I mean, this is going off Batman Year 1, Year 2, Long Halloween, which Batman was first starting out, where Bruce Wayne still was kind of reclusive, still wasn't the playboy that he was today.
And even in terms of him being broody, I mean, it's nothing compared to what we saw in the Burton movies. That was him truly being broody. And again, we barely got any screen time with him.
Yeah, I mean,
actually
he witnessed his
Bruce
parents' death in front of him when he was just 10 years old. That's kind of going to leave a lasting effect on him.
Yeah.
Wayne, he barely talks, he never smiles, and to be honest, is just kind of at a point where I started wondering if this version of Bruce had Asperger's syndrome.
Yes, but all of them do.
He just didn't have any social graces, no nothing. And
Well, like Kuba said, that's kind of the point. The movie is demonstrating that this is Batman very early in his career who's not figured out how to balance both the Bruce Wayne side of him and the Batman side of him. And that's the thing that he learns by the end of the movie.
Hmm.
He learns that he cannot just be the symbol of vengeance. He's got to also be the symbol of hope for the
Yep.
people. And the way he can do that is being Bruce Wayne. It's even a point that's brought up by I forget what her name is. She's the black chick who's running for mayor. She basically says that your family used to be incredibly charitable to the city, and I haven't seen you do much of that. That needs to change.
Hmm.
it's kind of unfortunate because, well, that's not how Bruce acts in the comics, and, I would have hoped that he would have taken more inspiration from that.
He
The
did.
other issue that
He did. This is not the comics you read where Bruce already has his shit together. This is the comics where Batman is just starting out. I've quoted all of them, and I'll keep quoting them. Long Halloween, Batman Year Zero, Batman Year 1, Batman Year 2, and Batman War of Jokes and Riddles. Batman is just starting to do this. He's just starting to figure this all out.
I mean, if you compare this movie, say, with the Year One animated version, they're very similar, especially. Well, let me put it this way, Micah. Batman does not smile except for two occasions in that movie. In the first occasion, that was him being the playboy who was trying to distract the police from him possibly being Batman, and the second time was after he saved
Oops.
Jim Gordon's kid. Otherwise, he is just as broody as he is in this movie.
I have, of course, is that the film is trying a little too hard to lean into sort of the serial killer genre of filmmaking, sort of like
Pause.
a Silence of the Lambs.
Riddler is a serial killer.
Joker's a serial killer. Victor Saz is a serial killer. Penguin is a serial killer.
I mean, it's not like they haven't told Long Halloween. What this is drawing from the most is a story about a serial killer.
That's even the thing, though, is that I wouldn't even say it's a stereotypical serial killer movie. If anything, it's a crime noir.
Which is the genre that inspired Batman.
Exactly.
Lambs type story. And the problem that I get from it is that there are elements where Paul Dano's Riddler honestly comes across as just trying way too hard to be Hannibal Lecter. Not to mention, this isn't the Riddler.
I'm sorry, how is he Hannibal Lecter?
He always was a serial killer. Like he commits crimes and basically kills people because he thinks he's smarter than them, and that gives him the right. And like the
Yeah,
only thing that's separating him from, let's say, the Riddler we see in Arkham Asylum, or the Riddler we see in Batman Animated, or the Riddler we see in the comics, is he's not using death traps. But again,
if
this is a
anything,
Riddler who's just starting out as well.
if anything, the serial killer that comes to mind with describing the inspirations behind this Riddler is not Hannibal Lecter. It's Saw. It's Jigsaw. Right down to the traps he uses.
Yep.
Hannibal Lecter's entire characterization was that of an eerily calm psychiatrist who had the capability to get under your skin. That is not Riddler in this case. Riddler is loud, uncontrollable, and bombastic.
Mm-hmm.
He is a man that is kind of barely holding it together. He's kind of ranting at the city.
Yep.
Not at all. This is the character of Anarchy from the comics, but the difference is that they took Anarchy and they gave him a green mask.
Pause.
They did that most.
As opposed to taking the character of Anarchy and putting him in clown makeup in one of your favorite movies. Like nothing
Which
about
one was that?
that would be The Dark Knight.
Ah,
Like nothing about Joker is like some sort of ideological anarchist like the Heath Ledger Joker. He just does it for the lulz. The whole point, the whole scene where he's preaching to Harvey Dent, I'm just a mad dog chasing cars. Wouldn't know what to do when I finally caught one. That's something you'd hear out of Anarchy, who is an anarchist. That's his entire character. Joker would just probably shoot Harvey right then and there. While dressed as a nurse, but still.
I would kind of say that maybe he would attempt to push him over the edge like he did with Jim Gordon and Killing Joke, but regardless, though, yeah. The thing is, Riddler, he's not Anarchy.
You
Everything
know?
about him is the Riddler. Just thrown in with a bit of Jigsaw to give him flavor of being a bit of a serial killer.
And a little
But
bit of
again,
Hush.
yeah. Yeah, if anything, his costume is far more similar to Hush than it is anybody else.
And that's kind of deliberate because the reporter that gets killed in this movie, he's apparently his last name is the same last name as the character who actually is Hush, Elliot. Elliot. He might be the father or the uncle of Thomas Elliot. The actual origin story in the comics is Thomas Elliot killed his own parents, which is kind of a story they already used with Black Mask, but still.
Mostly because, well, the Riddler is more easily identifiable. Yes, I know they were trying to go for a Zodiac killer, influence, yada yada yada. I get that, but the way that he's presented, he just doesn't come across like
Pause
the
it.
Riddler.
What would be wrong with him being based on the Zodiac Killer? The Zodiac Killer very much is a real-life version of the Riddler. He sent clues to the detectives hunting him because he thought he was smarter than them. That's in Riddler's entire modus operandi.
What I'm a little bit curious about, Micah, is what exactly is your version of the Joker? Or, sorry, not the Joker, the Riddler. Because what we get here is the Riddler. So I'm kind of confused as to how you would change him from what he is in the comics, which is a serial killer mastermind who uses traps and clues to try and prove that he is better than the people hunting him.
Mm-hmm.
The Riddler just isn't that type of a character, and it's unfortunate that they decided to do the character like that, because I think Paul Dano was a very good actor. I really liked him in There Will Be Blood. But anyway, the whole tone of this film and the way that they change Bruce Wayne's backstory and the backstory of his family and things like that,
They didn't.
Look, it's implied. Everything is within implication. However, Alfred outright says it. We don't know who killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. It could very likely, with the state Gotham is in, be just a random nobody in a mugging gone wrong, which is what it actually was. Then it could be any of the leads that the movie sets up.
Yeah. Before I talk about the backstory of the Waynes and Martha Arkham, yeah, that was her name, Arkham.
Mm-hmm.
Let's listen to what he says and see if he goes and talks about the things I think he's going to talk about.
Honestly, comes across as, again, way too cynical. It's a little bit contrived for certain things to be happening that shows that, oh, well, all these people that you thought were great really aren't that great, and yada, 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 and that's a cynic talking.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's very vague on this, isn't he? But I think he means Thomas Wayne working with the crime boss to silence that reporter.
Again, that is a thing. Yeah, it was in Long Halloween. It was established that the Waynes and Carmine Falcone had a relationship like that.
I mean, they were members of the Court of Owls until the Court of Owls wanted them rubbed out.
Yeah, and more than likely, he's also probably bringing up the relation to Martha being kind of mentally unstable. Again, that's a thing that they established 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She is a member of the Arkham family.
Yep.
Whenever that sort of thing happens. Now, by the way, I am by no means against stories with a bunch of shades of gray, but this is Batman we're talking about.
Yes, which is a very gray story. A lot of what Batman does is technically illegal.
I mean, his catchphrase is literally, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. I mean, what more can you say?
What he wants?
Like Batman is always brooding and there's shades of gray and blah, 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 blah. And I would ask what Batman you've been reading.
Let's see. I've been reading Detective Comics Batman, Batman Solo Run, Batman Dark Victory, Batman The Long Halloween, Batman Year 1, Batman Year 2, Batman 0 Year, Batman The War of Jokes and Riddles, Batman Hush Returns. Should I keep going on?
You don't need to, but yeah, I mean, what we see with the Batman here is no different than pretty much a lot of other Batmans. Give me a break.
The issue that I have with this sort of thing, and with a lot of people when it comes to superheroes in general, is they don't really understand the characters that they're writing. Yes, Batman is brooding. Yes, Batman uses fear against his enemies, which is a very dark concept. Yes, Batman is a moody prick sometimes, but he is not, and I repeat, is not a cynical human being.
Then why does he have plans to take down the entire Justice League in the event they go rogue?
Yeah, Batman is not a cynic. Of course he's a cynic. That's kind of the key function of his character. That's why he blends so well with Superman. He's a good contrast to him.
Let me explain this for a second.
I mean, pause it again. Criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. Who but a cynic would ever say that? You can continue.
As a person, understands that he represents something. Not just vengeance, like they put in here, which was, again, kind of cringy.
Pause.
Because
no, not just vengeance. Also the Knight and also Batman. But oh my god, if it's cringy for this movie, it's cringy for the animated series, which is considered to be one of, if not the best adaptation of Batman ever.
I mean, what are you supposed to be? I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman. That's his catchphrase. I mean, it's kind of like having a Superman movie
where he doesn't puff out his chest and repel bullets.
Well, that or someone saying, is that a bird? Is that a plane? No, it's Superman.
I mean, it's kind of the point, is what we're
Thing
trying to say.
as like some sort of really bad mockery. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with calling him Bat Freak or something? What the crap, dude? But anyway, Bruce Wayne, Batman, is
Well, again, multiple people call him Batman for the Batman. Penguin calls him the Batman. The press calls him the Batman. I mean, what more do you want?
not a cynical human being. He has every right to be a cynical human being, but he is not that cynical.
He
He
is.
lacks certain social graces, and he is a character that kind of refuses to address what anyone who's familiar with Jungian psychology would call his shadow. He refuses to address that part of his psyche that is troubled from the loss of his parents. It's something that always drives him to take vengeance and be the knight and all that other stuff.
I'm a little confused. What is he citing here exactly?
Jungian psychology.
No, I mean, I get that, but where in the movie is he citing this?
Ah. I'm just as lost as you are.
I think my biggest issue is that in his review, Curtis is not giving us clear-cut examples of what he's talking about.
And he also admitted he hasn't seen the full movie, so...
Yeah, I mean, if, okay, he's talking about the shadow, he does not acknowledge the shadow. Okay, present us a scene where he doesn't do that. Because anything, he has acknowledged his shadow. He's embraced it to the point it's actually damaging him as a person. I think the best way you can describe it is when he basically, Alfred's basically telling him, you need to go out more. You need to represent the Wayne family. This is your family's work. And he basically says, no, this is my family's work. If I can't make a difference out there, then there's no point. He has fully embraced being Batman. Again, we talked about that earlier. That's kind of the point. He's learned he can't do that.
That everybody rips off from Kevin Conroy's version of the character. But
Why is that a bad thing? Kevin Conroy's kind of the definitive version of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
what people tend to neglect is that even though Bruce is on a mission of vengeance against the criminal underbelly, the thing that you have to keep in mind is he also believes in things that are bigger than himself, and that these ideas that are more than just what he is and what he could be inside that cape are the things that are worth standing up for, because those things are good and those things are something that is worth fighting for.
Again, even in this movie, he's still doing that.
Yeah. If he was a cynic, he would have just given up.
Yeah. I mean, you can even kind of see this in his admittedly somewhat one-sided relationship with the son of the mayor who was killed. Which, by the way, me and my dad totally thought, yeah, this is going to be Robin. I don't think they're going to do it. They're probably going to do Dick Grayson. I know
They better
Patterson
do
even
Dick
wants to do
Grayson.
Grayson. But still, the fact that he is going out of his way to almost kind of look after this kid, to protect him, to the point that, the black chick running for mayor is talking to him, his focus is entirely on the kid. To the point that in the movie I said, I'm not here for you. I'm here for him. And at the very end of the movie, and this is probably the most symbolic part of it, is he rescues the kid. He loads him onto a rescue chopper in the middle of daylight, with him being muddy and bedraggled. He is no longer the dark, broody, scary monster at the night. He is now a hero in the daytime. Again,
I got into this to scare criminals, not children.
exactly. He very much still applies himself to the values that Curtis talks about. It's just not as blatant. It's a lot more subtle. But I guess subtlety is dead.
Along the lines of truth and justice
And the American way, I guess.
that good will prevail.
Can't have the American way anymore.
No, if you want the symbol of truth, justice, and American way, that's not the Batman. That never was the
Superman.
Batman. We have a superhero for that. His name is Superman.
Or Captain America.
Yeah, either or.
Yeah, either. I mean, they're not the same character. They're very similar characters, though. Which, honestly, is probably why Cap and Bat would actually get along pretty well if you put them in a comic together, which they have.
That is what Bruce Wayne believes. He believes that, every person should have their day in court. He believes that life is a precious thing.
Okay.
These are, these
Point to me where the scene where Batman doesn't treat life as precious and just kills people. You can point to it without end in Batman vs Superman and the Zack Snyder's Justice League. You can't point to it here. In fact, he stops Catwoman from killing someone.
Exactly. He stops her from killing Carmine Falcone.
Someone who very much objectively deserves to die, and Bruce Wayne would agree deserves to die.
Yes. And someone that is one of the many suspects who could have had his parents killed. He does not let her kill her, does not let her kill him, though. Again, also to gotta save her soul, but because Carmine needs to be put to trial.
Yes.
It's not enough to kill him, you have to publicly humiliate him. And he hands him over to the cops, and then he's killed by the Riddler.
And then he goes after the Riddler for basically acting as a vigilante and using him to do it.
enough ideas that most Americans believe in and believe in very strongly. But the problem we're dealing with is that this was just written by some dude in Hollywood. And the problem with Hollywood these days...
Okay, pause it.
The Hollywood
Pause it.
circles, we'll just put it that way, are incredibly cynical about those ideas because they seem to believe that
Pause it.
everything is relative.
Remember early on in the video when he said, "Oh, I don't care about the politics behind this," and now he's bitching about the politics behind this?
Well, that's Curtis we're talking about. I have nothing against him, but I've never liked his content. Not ever.
I used
That's
to
why
be
I've never
I
been-
used to be a fan, but then he got into Comicsgate, and apparently he got engaged with someone who is like, if this person is behind his shift, it's turning him into a really toxic person and a really two-faced person, a really hypocritical person.
By the way, I'm keeping track of the time here. We may want to kind of skip through some parts here. Do you?
We'll forget about the anomaly video. I mean,
Okay.
nothing Nam says isn't something that we also have said, and it's a much longer video.
The
Yeah.
problem with thinking that everything is relative is all of a sudden everything becomes cynical.
Again, I don't understand what he means by relative. Maybe he's talking about the level of corruption in this movie, but that's kind of the point.
It's Gotham City. What'd you expect?
Like, there's a part in the movie where they're talking about, I don't remember if it was the judge or somebody, but no, I think it was the crooked cops. I think it might have been the commissioner. But basically, Gordon more or less says, "You think these people deserved it, didn't you? Don't you? They got dirty." I don't remember quite what he said, but more or less he kind of said along the lines of, they did kind of deserve this. They betrayed their values. They betrayed the oath that they took to protect and serve the city.
Mm-hmm. Like, when has Gotham never been a corrupt asshole?
I mean, especially at this time, it's Carmine Falcone here. But can we just say that this is actually the first time we've gotten an accurate version of Carmine Falcone?
Yep. Not just some faceless goon. An actual crime boss with the cojones to go up against the Batman.
Even, like, the Nolan version of Carmine wasn't even Italian. He was played by an English actor, and his accent even kind of broke through his stereotypical... I'm not even going to say Brooklyn. I mean, it sounded very generically East Coast. I honestly couldn't tell you what kind of criminal organization he was attached to, because he's clearly not the Irish. He's clearly not the Italians. Carmine Falcone has always been Italian. Maroni has been Italian.
They're the Gotham Mafia. It's those two and Roman Sionis.
Second guessing why people believe certain things. You start second guessing whether or not these things are actually good, so on and so forth. Even though there's plenty of evidence that, yes, concepts like justice and truth and so on and so forth are static and good things that are worth defending. And that's what characters like a Batman are supposed to represent.
And he immediately
Let's
goes
compare
to the
for-
Christopher Nolan Batman.
Who explored that double think a lot more than this movie did. I mean, how many people more or less agreed with the Joker far more than they agreed with Batman?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll certainly say this. I was one of them. And I am 100% in Batman's corner. But that movie very clearly went out of its way to almost kind of prove the Joker right. Even its ending where people don't play into the Joker's little experiment, it still felt weak because you kind of get this vibe of, yeah, these people when put to the test weren't willing to blow each other up until you look closer at it. The prison guards were willing to blow up the other ship. The average people on the other boat were willing to blow up the other ship. It was exactly two people in that mob that weren't willing to do it. That's it. Joker's point about society being hypocritical wasn't disproven. The city did not show Joker that it was full of people willing to believe in good. Because exactly two people in there against the mob went against this.
The one righteous criminal and the guy who didn't have the cojones to pull the key.
Basically.
And how much you want to bet those were actually the ignitions to their own ships?
Probably. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised.
It is the Joker.
For a bit, if you will, between the Robert Pattinson version of the Batman, which, by the way, one thing I should say real quick about the Batman as a film. A lot of the acting in this movie was very good. It's just, I didn't like how the story was told. It's a personal taste sort of thing, and it's just
Okay.
something that I feel
Then this is a you problem.
with modern superhero films. But let's compare Robert Pattinson's Batman to Christian Bale's Batman. Christian Bale's Batman, though he could be very brooding and be very dark, he was, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, the closest Bruce Wayne / Batman that felt like he leapt off of the comic book page.
No, he did not.
Nope.
His Bruce Wayne, yes. His Batman, no. His
And
Batman was laughable.
And his ties to Ra's al Ghul in the very beginning are very much no.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love Batman Begins. I love that first part of the movie, especially with him training with Ra's. Is often the cornerstone of a lot of my writing. I always go back to the will to act scene. It's perfectly acted. But no. As far as the Batman and Bruce Wayne dichotomy, no. This movie did not capture it very well.
No.
Because, like most of the Batman movies, it doesn't focus on Batman. It focuses way too much on Bruce Wayne to the point that when you see him in the Batman costume, you don't see a Batman. You see Bruce Wayne in a Bat costume.
I don't wear hockey pants.
I still don't understand why they gargled his voice so much in those movies. He sounded fine in the first one.
Just turn the
Can we
pitch
just
down,
say-
Jesus Christ.
Can we just say that Pattinson's bad voice is just better? He doesn't even have to do very much. He just kind of lowers the pitch of his voice just a little bit.
He doesn't
It's the
sound
delivery.
like he smoked a million Marlboros.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the delivery. It's how he articulates his words. Batman's very deliberate. You know, he's very deliberate. He has a bit of a slowness to how he talks. Everything about him almost feels a little bit mechanical.
Almost as this is a very calculated crusade that he's going through.
You know, every word he says feels intimidating.
That's the point.
Whereas the Batman of the Nolan movies, with maybe a bit of the exception of the first movie, didn't really work. The first movie, I think, was the most successful out of all of them. honestly could have gone further with it, but instead it literally went the other direction. To the point that when he's up against the Joker and literally every other criminal in this movie, he's a joke. You can't take him seriously because of how ridiculous he sounds.
Ages, because this was a Bruce that was focused. This was a Bruce that allowed himself to smile and to laugh. This was a Bruce that legitimately felt righteous in what he was doing. Because
This is a Bruce that felt prematurely matured into his role when this is supposed to be the story of Batman beginning.
The other thing you have to remember with Batman Begins is the way that Bruce Wayne was at the very beginning of the movie is kind of what this Bruce Wayne in the Batman kind of is. The reason why he is focused and righteous, what have you, is because he underwent training with Ra's al Ghul, which is something very clearly this other Batman has not. He is entirely self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
He had a mentor who was able to shape his rage and anger into a driven, disciplined mindset, which is something that Batman took years to eventually develop.
Both in the comics and in most adaptations.
He took confidence in that, and as such he became a very easy and very enjoyable version of the character to watch. The interesting balance of Batman is that you want to still have a Bruce Wayne that can be Bruce Wayne, that can be a human being, that could be the kind of guy.
Well, yeah, this movie doesn't disprove that. It's the entire moral of the story.
What I'm kind of getting the vibe is, again, I don't like how vague he is. I don't like the fact he's not providing us clear-cut examples, which would allow us a greater depth of conversation here. Because, again, I got no idea what the hell he's citing here. But the hilarious thing to me is that he is actually showing us the Dark Knight Rises version of Christian Bale. You know, the version of Batman there. Which, I have to be honest, was probably him at his overall weakest as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I have many problems with that movie, but it mainly boils down to two major facets. One, Bruce Wayne himself degenerates so much as a person that he basically pushes out everybody he cares about, especially Alfred. And finally, it is Alfred. Alfred, the loyal, dependable person who will stick by Batman's side even when he disagrees in the utmost, leaves him.
Great oogly moogly, are you forgetting anything?
Again, Bane as a bad villain, you can tolerate that as long as the Batman element is good. But it wasn't. That's the problem.
Yeah,
he
I'll give you
talks
that.
about Bruce Wayne being a human being. Well, the image you got here is him at his absolute worst, where he kind of wasn't, where he was basically a depressing, suicidal note waiting to happen. He basically was going into this fight with Bane to die. I mean, you want an example of kind of an antithesis of what Batman should be, this is it. Batman is not suicidal. He does not go into his crusade looking to die. He goes into it looking to enact as much change as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That if you happen to sit next to him at like a coffee bar, he would strike up conversation with you if you started one with him. And he would laugh at the jokes and things like that. He wouldn't just stare at you like you got a second head.
Where are you talking? The only real circumstances where we see Bruce Wayne talking to people other than Alfred is when he's talking to the mayor, and again, it's very clear he doesn't care what she has to say because his attention is focused on the kid. I'm not here for you, I'm here for him. And with Carmine Falcone. Like, where in there is it that he's looking at you like you have a second head? I don't get
That is the kind of Bruce Wayne that Bruce Wayne is. And Christian Bale, he really nailed that element. He also nailed the idea that Bruce Wayne has a public persona and a private persona, things of that nature.
The entire
it.
point of
Except,
this movie.
yeah, I wouldn't even argue it doesn't even really succeed at that because the two personas aren't that different from each other. Like, look at his public persona as Christian Bale, Bruce Wayne, what have you, compared to his private one. He doesn't really act that different from each other, other than he gets a little bit drunk, he has women with him. Otherwise, it's effectively the same person. It's not a knock against Christian Bale's acting. His acting was tremendous. But to say that it exemplified the dichotomy of the three personas of Bruce Wayne is just kind of ridiculous.
Compare and contrast to some that does do the mix properly, which is Batman the Animated Series. Bruce Wayne in that is portrayed to be kind of optimistic, kind of cheerful, a philanthropist, a playboy, but also he's kind of clumsy. He's a bit naive when it comes to some things, and well, he comes off as a believable human being, and he doesn't need to have arm candy playing in the fish pond to do that.
Robert Pattinson, the direction he was given in this was not that. And again, it comes across as too cynical and too brooding because it doesn't come across that Bruce in The Batman believes in anything except for vengeance. And the problem with that is that Batman at no point was ever like that. Yes,
he was.
Yes, he was.
Batman Year 1, Batman Year 0, when he first starts out.
We're gonna keep citing those comics until people start reading them.
Even The Long Halloween kind of still retained that element. It wasn't until the very end of the movie that he fully grew out of that. Which, coincidentally, was also the same time that the traditional criminal of Gotham basically died to be replaced by supervillains.
Which is the whole point of that movie.
he wants to take vengeance on the streets for the injustices that has happened to him and his family, but at the same time, he realizes that there's something bigger out there than him, and that as Batman, as a symbol, he can basically take that idea onto himself, resemble it, give it a form, and then make it something that people either cheer for or fear, and it can maneuver and influence the world into a positive direction.
Beating a dead horse here, that's the realization he gets at the end of the movie. And I will throw one more element into it. He fights the Riddler goons, he unmasks one of them, which turns out to be one of the people who was at the mayor's funeral. One of the people whose children had died because of the Wayne Foundation Fund. You want to know what he says when Batman asks, "Who are you?" "I am vengeance." It's at that moment that Batman realizes that his overt use of fear was inspiring the wrong kind of message with the people of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you listen to the monologue he had afterwards, he more or less states that. So, yeah, either he didn't finish the movie or he just didn't care. And this is not his version of Batman he wanted to see.
And the interesting thing about that to me is I really feel like that is the mentality that many heroes in DC Comics really have. You know, if you look at a character like a Superman or a Batman or anybody from the Justice League, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Hawkman, so on and so forth, Captain Marvel, Shazam, for those who don't know and aren't old like me.
Calling him Captain Marvel is based.
You look at these characters and you see and you think of the things that they represent. You know, the Green Lantern represents...
Why is Batman front and center? Superman's the leader of the Justice League. He should be front and center.
Well, technically, Black Canary is the leader of the Justice League when this comic takes place.
willpower, which isn't really an emotion, but it's something that resembles the thing that carries you through the toughest times. And in a sense, the Green Lantern is a beacon for that. Every single Green Lantern, has had to face fear and use his willpower to push through it.
Guy Gardner.
Because ultimately that is a story about our everyday life. Superman represents truth, justice, and the American way. It's what he stands for. It's what he believes in, because he believes that there is truth. He believes that justice should always be served and that the scales should always be balanced. He believes in the American way because, well, he's a Midwestern Kansas boy who moved to, well, I believe it's Illinois, but I don't know where Metropolis actually is in DC Comics.
Metropolis, I think, is basically, what, Boston?
Uh,
Like
it's supposed to be a stand-in for New York, but its physical location has never been really pinned down. It might be St. Louis.
All we know is that apparently it's a pretty short distance from Gotham.
Which is basically Chicago.
But I've been to Metropolis, Illinois, by the way. It's a nice place. But anyway, as it stands, he's an American, and he believes in American values, or at least he did until, modern DC screwed it up. Which, again, is because too many modern writers are cynical. Wonder Woman...
No, it's not because they're cynical. They may call themselves cynical, but what they are deconstructionists. They're not about... Because the point of a cynic is that he believes that despite these morals, despite these great truths, the problem isn't the truths, it's the fact that people don't follow them. It's not that they don't matter, it's that people don't really believe in them. So why should I believe in them? When in reality, a lot of the modern writers, they're not about that. What they're about is that they're communists.
They're ideological zealots.
They want to take these classic American icons, and they are American icons, and they want to tear them down and basically change them to be their icons. They want them to be activists. I mean, that's why we have the newest son of Batman, or the newest son of Superman, and who cares?
Son of Superman protesting against climate change while there's an actual monster in the background destroying Metropolis.
Yep, basically. They're not cynics. They're activists, plain and simple. And that's what they changed them out to be, is shallow word bubbles of their ideology.
Mm-hmm.
They have no substance. And their ideology is basically to change the status quo to reflect a new status quo of us on the top. That's it. That's their ideology. It's feudalism is what it is, honestly. They want to be kings, so they want to kill the current king.
They claim they're against hierarchies. They aren't. They just want themselves at the top instead.
Yeah, basically. They're not cynics, like I said, because their beliefs are not rooted in that of the cynic, which is ultimately a distrustfulness of people. Their ideology is based out of hatred.
Woman is the same way. I always felt like her big thing was bravery in the face of
Wonder Woman is the symbol of truth.
Odds. And kind of breaking barriers, which is what she did. And then, of course, you can go through the rest of, the Justice League. I always felt like the Flashes resembled Hope, because they were always very hopeful people,
He's not
Jay
wrong.
was always a very hopeful person. Barry...
I'll just say this. Your ability to recognize greatness does not make you great.
Was and is always a hopeful person. Same with Wally before they ruined him. So, needless to say, these are people that are paragons. These are people who understand that it's not just about protecting my identity. I represent something to this world when I put on this mask, and what I represent means something. Now, the problem we run into, and I'll reiterate this when it comes to doing DC Comics, is we have too many freaking people out there that are so set on this weird feeling of relative morality that they honestly don't think that anybody can be a paragon of anything, which misses the point of superhero comics.
I mean, you're right, but you're also wrong. Like we said, it's not that these bad writers, these relativists, don't want them to be paragons. They want them to be paragons of their ideology. But
And
they are right.
and I should also mention, since he has the Justice League up, Batman never wanted to be a member of the Justice League because he never believed himself to be that kind of a symbol. It's just that symbology was thrust upon him. And especially early on, Batman was not that kind of a symbol.
Yeah, it's not really until Justice League Unlimited that he fully became a member of the Justice League. Otherwise, he was more of a part timer. I mean, even the JLU, he still says he's a part timer when the Justice League decides to hand themselves over to the government.
And really, in the comics, the only thing he does within the Justice League is mostly administrative roles. He was basically the team coordinator for the Justice League International, and he was the team coordinator for the Justice League Dark.
And he also does provide, well, basically the funding for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Comics. These are supposed to be the best of us. These are supposed to be the people that, for whatever reason, are able to be those paragons of truth and justice and so on and so forth. They are able to take that upon themselves because they, well, again, they're the best of us. They resemble what me and you and all of us really want to be at the end of the day. I'll flat out say I would love to be like a Hal Jordan, not just because he, slays Mad Puss, but more.
Yeah, thanks for getting my cotton taken off, Micah.
And Hal Jordan is my favorite DC hero. Is what Hal represents in that willpower, and the will to face all of these temptations and these emotions and stay strong and stay true to yourself and to push forward and do the right thing, which is why I love that character. And I honestly hope that they never try another Green Lantern movie because they're never going to get it in this modern day and age. It's probably going to take another decade. But when it comes...
Can I just say this? As far as the last Green Lantern movie, I admit full on it's bad. But as far as his characterization of Hal Jordan, it wasn't bad.
It wasn't.
Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan was okay.
Yeah.
The problem was literally everything else in the movie. Like, the only things they got right was somewhat the characterization of Hal Jordan and Sinestro. That's about it.
They rushed Parallax. The actual villain they picked was weak. They didn't establish the Green Lantern Corps as a thing as much as they should have.
Honestly, if you were going to pick a Green Lantern, going back in time to that point, it should have been crap. I cannot remember names today. It was Mal from Firefly.
I never seen Firefly, so I don't know.
Let's see. He was also Castle. What is his name?
I imagine the chat's eating me alive for never having seen Firefly.
You do need to see Firefly. I think you would like it.
I'll get to it eventually. There's a lot of things I need to see.
Let's see. What's his name? Firefly cast. It's come on, Nathan Fillion.
Thank you.
Oh my god, why can't I not remember these names? Nathan Fillion would have been the perfect Hal Jordan.
Now, see, I know who that is, but I know him from something else.
What do you know from what?
I don't remember, but I have heard the name before. It was from something I do like.
Well, Nathan Fillion, ironically, is the most consistent voice they do get for Hal Jordan, and he's an excellent choice.
Yeah, it probably was his voice work for Green Lantern First Flight.
I think it was. Enough about that.
Right down to it, I am honestly of the opinion that DC characters are getting it worse than anybody, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to really allow these characters to be the paragon.
Zack Snyder.
Now, granted, I have to say this: I have not seen Aquaman, though I have heard a lot of really good things, and I have not seen.
Aquaman was a good movie.
Yeah, it was all right. The stuff with Amber Heard kind of makes it sour, though.
Well, taking out Amber Heard's real life drama crap, overall, her presence in the movie is probably the weakest element.
Probably.
If anything, Jason Momoa's best moments are when he's not with her. It's when he's either alone or he's with freaking Tamora Morrison.
Now they're recasting everyone. I do hope they keep Momoa. I don't think he makes a good Aquaman, but he would make an excellent Lobo.
He would be.
Shazam either, though I have heard a lot of really good things.
Shazam is a good movie.
It's excellent.
Shouldn't be called Shazam, though. It should be called Captain Marvel.
Exactly. DC had that right first. Well, Fawcett had it first, but then DC bought Fawcett. And this was before Marvel Comics was even called Marvel Comics. They were still called Timely Comics.
Gee, it's like Marvel could have called Carol Danvers Ms. Marvel. But that's neither here nor there.
I hear that those two films actually move in a good direction towards what I probably would really like, and what I've always liked about DC heroes, you know. But then again, it'll probably be forever till I actually watch those films. This is how bad I am at putting stuff off.
I'm the same way.
I only read the Great Darkness Saga a month ago.
I don't know what that is.
I know, I'm terrible. But anyway, that's my gripe basically with the Batman, and that's my gripe with a lot of people taking on modern DC comics. You're all too fucking cynical to do it, man. Like, take 5 minutes.
Again, it's not that they're cynical, it's the fact that they are activists.
They're not They're not cynical. They're just evil.
Yeah. Their ideology, like we said before, is not based upon distrust. It's not based upon disbelief, which is what the cynic is. It's based upon hatred. It's hatred for everybody that is not part of their ideology. I mean, what is the key cornerstone of the leftist ideology of today? It's revolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's activism. It's riots. What's the key emotion tied with both of those? Hatred.
Mm-hmm.
We hate the status quo. We hate society so much that we want to tear it down, kill anybody who gets in our way.
We hate this ex-firefighters sports bar in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I still cry whenever I see what happened to that guy in the initial George Floyd riots, and these people don't care about the people they claim to care about, because these are the lives that they're destroying.
I think the most telling one can be found in Count Dankula's video about the rooftop Koreans. He shows a specific segment where this old black gentleman lost his business during the LA riots, and he basically takes out to the streets and say, "Why did you destroy my business? Why? Why did you do this to me? I did nothing to you."
Yeah.
And the people just don't care. They didn't care. All they cared about was that they stole this man's stuff, they set fire to his building, and they destroyed his livelihood.
And the politicians who keep stoking those fires just to get more votes. People like AOC. Ghislaine Maxwell.
They are despicable, evil, hateful people who, most part, cannot be bothered to just leave people alone. They want to radicalize everything. Mm-hmm. They want to take over everything and shape it into their vision. Which, ironically, is kind of what we see in this movie. Riddler epitomizes a bit of that.
Yep.
Not to say the movie's political. It's not.
Nope.
But you can easily attribute Riddler's actions to a lot of the activists that we deal with today.
I've seen one person, I don't remember who it was, but he called the movie woke because the mayor's name, the very first guy who gets killed, is named Donald. And it's like, dude, it's just a fucking coincidence. Calm down.
Yeah, considering the fact the man looks nothing like the bad orange man. No, no. Look, at the end of the day, Micah, you are entitled to your opinion. And I don't know you, I don't pretend to know you, and I don't even think you're a bad person. You obviously run a pretty successful YouTube channel. I'm happy that I've got your own comics, and
He's
I think
he's
you've got
one
good
he's
art.
one of the people who convinced me to start doing this. He's one of the people I looked up to for doing this, and for that I'll always thank him. But he's wrong about the
But
Batman.
I, man, I think your problem is more than likely you're basing your entire beliefs about the Batman, his characterization, around more than likely just the Nolan movies. I know you brought up, images of the JLU and, bits and pieces of other comics. I don't think you've probably read many Batman comics. You probably haven't read many from the 80s, which was kind of the hallmark of a lot of the mythos of Batman that we know today.
I think his
It built upon,
if I remember his comic habits, I think his biggest thing was Spider-Man.
which, no problem there. I like Spider-Man too.
Yeah,
But
me too.
you need to go back and read a lot of the stories that are centered around Batman's early career.
hmm
That's what inspired a lot of this movie.
That's where a lot of the gold is, even.
They even stated that most of the movie was greatly inspired by Long Halloween, by Batman Year One, Batman Year Two.
Batman No Man's
If you
Land.
go if you go back and read those things, you see its DNA in this movie. But maybe you just don't have time. Maybe you don't care. I don't know. I don't
Uh,
pretend to know.
just look, if you're not gonna at least give the movie the time of day, maybe keep your opinion to yourself. If it's or just go on social media. I don't really want to see this movie. This is why here, here, and here. Just don't make a sweeping judgment on a movie you haven't seen in full.
And finally, again, my piece of advice: if you're going to review this movie and talk about things you don't like, you have to cite examples in the movie so
Yeah,
we know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Even whenever,
This is why I didn't do anything about Obi-Wan, and when I said in my video, go watch Trace's channel because you actually did see it, and because I trust your opinion on it, I didn't see it myself outside of clips. And whenever I brought it up in my video, it was based on those clips, and I made that 100% transparent.
and with me, every time I go into a rant about something, where it be Kenobi or the sequels or even Marvel What If, I go in depth. I talk about specific scenes. I even did in my positive review on Top Gun Maverick. I talk about the specific things I like about that. I bring up specific scenes. And what it does is it grounds your review. It gives people context. When you do it vague like this, we don't know what you're talking about. So we have no way of ascertaining what got you to this conclusion.
So this is basically the end of this video. I think the rest of it is him showing his own comic.
Yeah, I'll do one thing before we go.
What would that be?
Micah. This is why your beliefs about him calling himself Vengeance is bogus.
Bruce.
No, not now.
You are a disgrace.
No. No, you are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman.
Enough said.
Yeah, so that's the long and short of it. It's a great movie. If you have 3 hours to kill, go ahead and watch it. It's available on HBO Max. It's out on Blu-ray and DVD. Please support it legally so we can get more movies like this and less like the Snyder Cut. And I guess I'll see you guys next month where I have another stream planned. I mean, I did a whole bunch of these all at once, and it's probably going to kill my channel because streams are not good for the algorithm, but hey, they're fun to do, and I'm going to do another one. Though, Tracer, you're not going to be here for that.
No, I won't.
Because it's going to be on a topic you could give less of a crap about.
Yeah, I'm happy though that you're gonna get a co-host to help you with that. Though,
Yep.
Because if I was there, I'd have no idea what the hell you were talking about.
Yep, that's the great thing about this show, the Jedi Knights. It isn't always going to be on my channel. It isn't always going to be me hosting, and it isn't always going to be the same hosts. But from our little experimenting around with this, I think the two-person format does work best.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it then. Anything to say before we close?
I am vengeance.
I am the Knight.
I am Batman.